Hey, what's up guys? Justin here with AM with a short little video for you today featuring my 2019, but this will really apply to any S550 Mustang and the Lund Racing n-Guage device. Now, to backtrack a little bit, hopefully you guys saw our recent track vid with this car at Maple Grove where it went 1190s bone stock, 1160s with the tune and E85, but you saw we did it using the n-Guage device. Obviously a very popular device for a number of generations, but more specifically here for the S550s, obviously because they work really well, but because of your mounting option. Now, I would say the most popular way to throw this thing in your S550 is to plop it into one of your vent openings here. It just looks like it almost came that way from the factory. So that's what we're gonna show you here today, guys, is how to get this guy in place in one of your vent openings. Now, for the most part, this can be done with just your own two hands, maybe a few well-placed zip ties. Panel removal tool, not necessary, but will always help make the job a little bit easier. There's gonna be a few different ways to do this, but we're just gonna show you how I did it here today. Keep it very simple for the most part, and yeah, it should take you a few minutes from start to finish. So let's see if we get it done. All right, guys, so your first step is basic disassembly of some of the dash area here. Now, I know it might be a little intimidating for some of you guys, especially on your brand new $30,000 to $40,000 Mustang, but trust me, it's not that bad. Just use your head, use light pressure, don't gorilla things out, and you'll be good. So let's get started. First up, open up your glove box there, which will allow you to access this panel right here, and we'll pop this off. All right, guys, with that small panel removed, now you can gain access to the main dash panel here that will need to be removed next. Now, in order to do so, there are a number of small clips along the way, so I recommend starting off on one end, gently prying back and dislodge the entire panel in one piece. Well, there you go, guys. Our panel is now removed with no casualties. We had one of these small little yellow clips pop off on us, but no biggie, we'll just slap that right back on. And if you did have a performance pack car, you will have some gauges here. There will be one wire at this point you will need to disconnect before you can completely remove this from the car. But now that this is off, we're gonna show you how to get one of these vents out and throw our n-Guage in. Now, to actually remove the vent itself, you gotta push these little blue areas in and then pry back on this almost at the same time. And if you dislodge everything, your vent will pop right out. All right, guys, now our vent is out, as you can see, and at this point, we have a few different options for mounting. Again, non-performance pack car, so no gauges in this thing, which gives us three different options. A lot of guys will go with that center vent to keep things maybe a little symmetrical in appearance. Personally, I'm going with the vent that's closest to the driver, just easier to reach, easier to view, so no wrong answer here. Your car, you can do whatever you want. Performance pack owners, well, you do have those gauges to kind of contend with. So at that point, a lot of guys will go with that vent closest to the driver. Again, no real wrong answer here. Your car, you can do whatever you want. So we got our n-Guage device. We have our dash panel ready to rock and roll. But at this point, you'll see the gauge isn't quite snug in there. Could use just a little bit more diameter. So for that, we'll incorporate a tool a lot of people use, and that is just thickening it up with a little bit of tape. Whatever you have on hand. I'm gonna use a little 3M tape because it's got a little bit more thickness, but you can use whatever you have laying around the garage. All right, so we're gonna apply our 3M tape to the outer ring here, just to thicken it up ever so slightly. And this is kind of trial and error. Probably wanna do one pass on the gauge, test fit it, see how it works. If you need a little bit more thickness, you can just do another pass, but let's start with one and see how she fits. Well, guys, one pass seemed to be the ticket here. It fits nice and snug. Didn't even pull the backing off of the 3M tape. It seems to be happy where it is now. But again, this is something you can always play with. If you get it in place, not happy with how it's sitting, you can always pop it back out, readjust, add some more tape, whatever the case. But before we snap this thing back in, we have to do the second most vital part of the install, and that is running our wire. So I'm gonna set this aside for now. We're gonna grab our OBD2 cable and get to work on that next. Next part of the job is the fun part, right? And that is the wiring. Now, I'm saying that kind of sarcastically because I'm a bigger guy, I have big hands. Running wires in the tight spots isn't exactly my specialty, but I'm gonna show you a method that's pretty easy overall. Now the first step is gonna be to pop off a panel right next to the steering wheel here on the driver's side portion. And at that point, with that removed, you can dump the OBD2 portion back underneath the dash, fish that on over to the port itself, and then we're actually gonna be really close to the connection part being where it needs to be. We'll go back later, clean up the wiring a little bit, zip tie it to a few things under the dash, but a much easier way. I've seen some other guys kind of disassemble the whole left side of the dash here. I don't think that's necessary, so let me show you my method right now. Okay guys, get a couple fingers in there, gently pry this away, and just kind of let that dangle. With the panel popped, now's the time to grab the business end of your OBD2 cable from the n-Guage and start fishing it back through a hole that is present back there. Now, I personally found that that hole gets a little bit bigger if you drop your steering wheel down ever so slightly and just opens up that space a little bit more. All right guys, so we fished a lot of that wire back in there. Again, we'll clean that up later once we plug everything in, but now we want to take the connection part of the n-Guage device, and we're really close to where we need to be. So using the panel we just popped off, we're going to gain access and fish this behind that area up into the dash here, and then grab it with our other hand. All right guys, so there we are. Our wire is home free again. If you have bigger hands, it's a little tight working in some of these spots here, but you get the wire up. And don't worry about this being in front of the actual dash material right here, guys, because the way that dash panel sits that we removed earlier, it's not gonna interfere where this is. You can see this plastic portion here, it actually rests on that. So as long as we're behind that and the cable is kind of tucked out of the way, we should be good to go. No interference, that panel should snap into place without issue. Now what we're gonna do is, guys, kind of re-snap this panel next to the steering wheel, work our way underneath the dash, tidy up the wiring there, and plug in that OBD2 port. Well, there's the business end of our OBD2 cable waiting for us that we pushed through earlier on. So at this point, just gonna simply wanna plug that in. And you'll see that wire, well, this is up to you to climb on underneath the dash, do some contortionist stuff, some car yoga as I like to call it, grab some zip ties and safely tuck those up and out of the way of the pedal assembly and all that good stuff. Just makes it nice and tidy. But that's about it, guys. We're home stretch. We just gotta grab our dash panel. We're gonna plug in our n-Guage before locking everything in, make sure everything works fine. And that's about it. So we're back on the passenger side here, guys. We have our dash panel. Now, before we totally snap this thing back into place, never a bad idea to just make sure everything works as it should. So let's plug her in, see if she powers up. There we go. Now that we verified our n-Guage is functioning properly, we can reinstall our dash panel. Last piece of the puzzle here. Snap that into place. Well, there you have it, guys. We're all wrapped up. The n-Guage is in the dash now. I think it looks pretty killer. And again, very easy job, really no hand tools needed. A couple zip ties and you should be wrapped up in about an hour or less from start to finish. Guys, be sure to stay tuned for more videos with my 2019 here. Of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel if you like what you see. And don't forget, for all things Mustang, keep it right here at AmericanMuscle.com.